Alright. Alright, everybody. It's getting to be a habit now. We go from not hearing a lot from me to hearing about me or from me so much that you probably want to turn off your notifications. But again, I'm trying to build up a daily habit here of reviewing stuff during the day that's breaking or something that broke late last night so that I don't have to kind of regurgitate all that stuff all over again when I make my appearances, which it looks like I'll be on MNN again tonight. So you're going to see way too much of me, but I think we have our special guest tonight that I've been talking about. So I'm really hoping that lines itself up. So you may be seeing me again tonight, somewhere between 7 and 8 o'clock. I'm pretty sure about that. I think I'm about ready to get a big storm here in central Pennsylvania, and it's putting a weird pall over my face. So if I look a little orange, that's not me. That is actually just the changes in the light to the room. So let's go quickly here before I have to head down to Hershey. And as always, when you're going to do these 30-minute speed rundowns, you need to keep your palate drenched in the delicious flavor of Polar Seltzer water. And if you don't have access to Polar Seltzer water, you need to write your store chain and tell them to get it delivered. Find a way to do it. Anything's possible with the magic of the internet. Polar Seltzer water, 100% flavor, 100% calorie free. Here we go. Always unopened because we're all teetotalers now. Nobody drinks. Yeah, anyway, let's do this quick. So first, let's go through the Rosenstein junk. The story that was broke last night, late, is something that came to the White House's attention, I believe, Monday evening and Tuesday morning, that they wanted some potential White House feedback on what was breaking on the ore information. Now, this has been slowly, it's like a crumbling rock side of a cliff since, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, Peter Strzok, under his testimony, when he was drilled down on whether or not he received any information from Bruce Orr, once you go back to that moment, and he basically says that he can't answer that. I think he said that in a closed-door session. He said it publicly in the session. And then they took a break. And then the next time the question was asked, the moment, I believe, was stopped. I don't have the video. The hearing was stopped. The FBI counsel behind Peter Strzok said that he may answer, I guess, whether or not he had ever met with and or received information from Bruce Orr related to the Steele dossier. And the problem was, at that point, is Strzok thought he could answer the question in full, and he started to say that he had, in fact, 3 separate times received or met with him, but then he basically admitted that Bruce Orr had provided information as well. So that basically started the rundown, the countdown on Bruce Orr. Did he report the conflict on his 287 file for employment with the DOJ? And the answer to that is no, he did not. He issued his wife as a salaried position. He did not indicate that his wife was working for GPS Fusion, and that is a major problem for Bruce Orr because he was, in fact, as a family unit, which they consider for government purposes, family unit, you may not profit off of any federal investigation or federal activity. His wife was profiting directly off of a federal investigation. That's not good, and in particular, you need to immediately recuse yourself, and then you need to file that on, I believe it's the 287 form with the DOJ. He did neither of those things. Here's the really interesting part. Here's where the White House perked up, and by White House I mean Don McGahn and basically the president. They perked up when they were sent by the major news publications, were off the record sending them the testimony in late June from Rod Rosenstein, in which he assured the committee, the House committee, that he in fact had not been aware, even though Bruce Orr had been in his office right next door and been his right-hand man for 6 months, all the way through to December 2017, he said he was not aware at any time that Bruce Orr was in any way involved with the investigation into the Trump campaign. or Russia or anything. And that is now under oath and on the record. Now, I'm not quite sure what he thought was going to happen. And if you've ever thought of Rosenstein as a dangerous character, you should consider him more dangerous than ever now, because his entire career is on the line. So all it takes now is Bruce Orr getting pinched really hard and having to admit, or somebody, if there's any white hat left on the 7th floor, Main Justice is going to give up an email or a meeting, a meeting list, a subject list, and something is going to have Bruce Orr and Rosenstein together, overlapping a Russia-oriented talking point or a Steele dossier talking point. They will overlap within that 6 to 7 month range where Rosenstein was there with Bruce Orr as his right-hand man. What is the likelihood that if you go back to when the executive order was issued after Comey was fired, and you have at least 5.5 months of Bruce Orr working directly with Rosenstein, and Rosenstein takes over this entire investigation, what is the likelihood that Bruce Orr did not facilitate and or make Rosenstein aware of some capacity that his wife worked for GPS Fusion, he had talked with Glenn Simpson, who was the former journalist hired and runs GPS Fusion. It's a mess. It's a total mess for Rosenstein. All it takes is one now. All it takes is one email, one text, one phone call log that can't be explained between Orr and Rosenstein is in deep, deep doo-doo. They will pounce. Nunes is ready to pounce on anything. Grassley will pounce on it. So the rundown here is just not good. The White House approached the DOJ about it through their deputy channels, and the deputy channels reported back to the White House that Rod Rosenstein would like a, quote, I tweeted this, quote unquote, a little time to respond, of which Trump gave him about 36 hours and was not satisfied with the response and or received none of it. And that's when he decided to tweet about potentially revoking Bruce Orr's security clearance, which is a way to preempt the whole, Bruce Orr's been demoted for 9 months, but it's, he's still there and he's still a security clearance. What are we going to do about getting that out? So the same way Trump handled McCabe, the same way Trump handled Strzok, he's handling Orr. He's like, listen, assholes, if you want to keep these guys employed with access to a security clearance, I'm going to go on Twitter, and that's how I'm going to manage this whole thing. And that keeps them out of the scope of the Mueller investigation and any obstruction nonsense. So bad news for Mueller. Just a bad, terrible, horrible day for Mueller. Let me try to make it a little bit more light in here. So I don't look like I'm so orange. Hate staring at myself anyway. So a good-looking guy, but I hate looking at myself. Anyway, at least I don't look like Baby Chin out there in Arizona. So you got this intense dialogue with the joint committee of the Oversight Committee and the Goodlat's Judiciary Committee that is just not even 2 months old yet. And the residue left over from that exchange, that's amazing. We've got some great stuff on the record as far as what Strzok was forced to say. We don't know what Lisa Page said. So Lisa Page in closed-door sessions may have enlightened the committees on something to do with Bruce Orr and Bruce Orr's connection with Simpson and Steele and something in there. All it takes is a Lisa Page, a Peter Strzok, or anybody to get Rosenstein. So know this. Peter Strzok does not like Rod Rosenstein, not one bit. Peter Strzok is angry at being a martyred sacrifice for the resistance movement, and he will if he can take you down, he's going to take you down. So now you've got these little pissed off people like Andrew McCabe and Strzok, and now they own serious leverage against Rosenstein, because if either one of those or any one of these people, including Lisa Page, can prove that Bruce Orr, while working for Rosenstein, did make him aware, whether unwittingly or not, that he was involved with this investigation and passing information to the FBI. Rod Rosenstein is now going to be called out for perjury in front of the House, which is a serious thing because you really don't even need to be under oath. If you lie to Congress, it is going to be a de facto lack of candor as a justice official, which means it'll be explored immediately by, guess who, Michael Horowitz. So there's the only person, because Jeff Sessions has recused himself so thoroughly that he can't even manage his own staff here, the only person that can effectively rebuke Rosenstein's status now as being in charge of the special counsel is, in fact, putting a Horowitz-style IG investigation into it. It's a personnel investigation at this point. Yes, you, even as a deputy attorney general, acting attorney general, can be investigated for malfeasance and for lack of candor and for lying in front of Congress. So Rod Rosenstein is in a real pickle here, which leads me to believe even further that they are working towards what they think will be a seminal moment against Trump, that somehow this will preserve them. And again, he's just trying to get through the midterms. This is happening too fast for Rosenstein's taste, and he is now exposed in late August, and he's got 75 days left to play defense. It's not. I mean, it's just. I predict this stuff is going to start heating up, and it's going to be bad news because Grassley, for now, is going to be a little bit stuck on Kavanaugh, trying to get the Kavanaugh hearing started and all this other stuff. But Nunes is just pumping this stuff into Grassley, and it's just going to be redirected to Goodlatte in some capacity in order to get the hearings on this. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen in there. All I know is that the DOJ sources that I have in some cases have not heard from in a while, including a major publication source who covers the DOJ that you would think was a liberal publication, and you may be right, but the reporter in question that's covering it is a very honest person that is willing to give a heads up every now and then and it's not the Washington Post if that's what you're thinking, but to a story like this, because a lot of times all these big publications have the same story, but one has a scoop and they just let them break it and then they all report on what they know. But almost all reporters covering the DOJ on a consistent basis know the same story. They know what's going on. So the White House asked for clarification once they received word about this, the initial investigation into Bruce Orr's connection and the press breaking all this stuff. They were not satisfied with Rosenstein's explanation. I'm inclined to think they did not get one. And then Trump just went forward and did what he did through the tweet, which sets everything in motion the same way it did with McCabe. And it doesn't always work right away. It took many tweets to get McCabe out, and the clock almost struck midnight on him to get his retirement before they finally acted. And it took a long time to get Strzok out and revoke his clearance. So we're probably looking at the same. I don't think Bruce Orr is going to lose the protection. So you say, well, why don't they fire Bruce Orr? Well, Rosenstein doesn't want to fire Bruce Orr because then Bruce Orr has no protection of the counsel that works for the government. So he won't be able to sit there in front of the congressional hearings and say, I can't answer that. It's part of an ongoing investigation. I can't answer that. It's part of an ongoing investigation. That answer and the free lawyers that for him will be free lawyers who work for the DOJ behind him provide protection and an only way for Rosenstein to navigate the potential fallout that he's dealing with. So I'm sure Trump is going to put his foot down as hard as he can for them to get Bruce Orr out of there. And I'm sure the phone call has been made to Jeff Sessions again to get his house in order. And I'm also sure that Jeff Sessions is being told by Rosenstein this would be a very hairy thing for you to get involved in, which is basically a threat to Sessions. They threaten Sessions all the time. I'm like on a weekly basis, he gets very mild backdoor threats from those at the top floor at Justice Maine. So that's my 15 minutes on the Rosenstein situation. Talk more about this on MNN maybe later tonight. But let's quickly go to a very bad, horrible day for Q. Not a good day for Q yesterday. It was a very prolific day, apparently, for posting. I don't know if Q posts that much all the time, but I can tell you that it was not a very good day for Q. And today's not shaping up to be too great either. All I can tell you is that the chat logs are real, and it's just the start of it. And then once the names are revealed, it'll be independently verified by another source who is not working with the source that's working with Jack Posobiec. So all I can tell you in preparation for that, prefatory comments will be limited to the chat logs are real. It's all I'm basically, I care to say on the issue. I could say more, but I don't need to. And the chat logs are real, and what you see coming forward are real, and they are not manipulated in any way. And then people can make their own minds, and the names that are involved, we'll see. But a bad day for Q started with the nonsensical post that I talked about INSCOM, and it made no sense. INSCOM cannot trump the DOJ process of the FISA court. It made no sense that they were preserving FISA court documents that they would not have access to. And if the military did so, it would be a violation of the constitutional protections and of the Separation of Powers Act by virtue of this being a law. And you can't supersede constitutionally approved statute by Congress by making any type of military directives that is in conflict with that. That's impossible. And there are no secret directives by the DOD or INSCOM that would trump this process. That's not allowed in the Constitution. And certainly there's no secret executive order issued by the president, because you can't involve yourself in the process, the due process, the process of gathering evidence, and anyway, the court process, including the FISA court. You can't trump that through an executive order. You just can't do it. Let's go a little bit to Q here. How did it start? How did the bad day start? Bad day started with that nonsensical post and me paying attention to it. And then it got worse. Apparently, Q, and I didn't know this for a long time, Q had made the assertion that this military parade was going to be a day of all kinds of activity. So on the Veterans Day of this year, they were supposed to have this big military parade, and this was a core function of the early part of the Q philosophy about introducing the concept of this ultimate trust in the military system. The military is in charge. Everyone else is a pedophile, and just watch out. This is going to be when Trump starts to unveil a lot of the stuff that's going on. Well, bad news for Q. The parade, of course, has been indefinitely suspended, and I'm sure it will not ever really occur, because they gave the Congressional Budget Office probably gave the approved figure of $92 million for the cost, or the Office of the Budgetary Concerns under the DOD would issue that. Whatever. Almost $100 million for a parade, which is, going to go increase costs for next year, so they're not going to have it. So it was pretty bad. So then Q has to say, okay, timelines change, and then it's really embarrassing. I guess if you're a Q fan, it's really embarrassing, but not quite as embarrassing as things got later on for Q. So Q cited a blackout of Xbox, PlayStation, internet connectivity issues in the greater Northeast, which upon research that I did is not altogether uncommon, and certainly was only a couple of thousand incidents, and it did not involve or impact merely the gaming box connection. There were cable internet issues that matched the outage for the... I don't know anything about connecting through this type. I'm not a gamer. I don't have an Xbox, never have, PlayStation, whatever. It's all silly. Maybe it's how I got a little bit intellectually further into the game, is because I just never did that. I was too busy reading books and learning. So, and dating, which people should try before they get too old. So, they posted this. Q actually posted that this was some type of a prediction or a prophecy that a couple thousand people were disrupted from their gamer access, which is just really embarrassing, because I think for the Facebook groups, they obviously had this target. This will come out in the chat logs. That they had a target to get older people, baby boomers we call them, involved, and they've successfully have done that very much. So you can imagine the confusion of a Q drop falling on the head of a 60-year-old woman who thought, to the extent that PlayStation and Xbox was something that their grandkids played with in their free time before they were finally told to do homework. I'm sure it was a little disconcerting that Q is so greatly dependent upon access through your gaming box, so that you can get on Reddit or 4chan, 8chan, or whatever the hell it is your people are doing. So a really disappointing day. The parade got pissed on, and a lot of gamers were subject to a blackout of service for a couple hours. So if that is somehow inherently related to top clearance, cabal issues to wipe out a Zionist regime of pedophiles, well, then it must all come back to the PlayStation, which is just, it makes sense. Because some of these people spouting it are drinking Monster energy drinks and apparently have nothing else to do but talk about this and other people in a derogatory way. So anyway, not good. So I went on this Reddit for the first time. I went on this Reddit Great Awakening page, which I guess is the home of like the Q stuff. So anons like to get involved in, deciphering the breadcrumbs and telling you in bulk in aggregate what Q has said or is saying. So what I did was I found a really interesting one from last night by an anon, and I'm not attributing it to Q. He's saying his summation here is what Q has been saying, and I found it to be comprehensive to me. And I'm going to read it to you real quick. Repost from end of last bread, which means, I guess, breadcrumb. Q says timelines changed, and then he puts that in quotations because, of course, Q did say that. And then this is odd, as far as a recapitulation of events. That could mean one of three things. Parade was moved back, but this doesn't make sense because the parade was already, the DOD had basically already confirmed that there was not going to be a parade well before Q let it be known. Actually, it had to be, I think the story might have even been broken by Q follower Lisa Mae Crowley. So, Q in no way predicted that the parade was going to be delayed. But this person seems to think that the parade was moved back, or the parade was moved up, or the parade is disinfo for timing. So I'm really confused as how a military parade could be purposeful disinfo. As far as military intelligence was concerned, that would be one of the dumbest things you could possibly say. And do you really think we are not in control? We have everything. Again, this is an anon on Great Awakening, maybe a LARP himself, but he's putting together a summation of Q in his version. Do you really think we are not in control? We have everything. Proof of assassination attempts, proof of murder and child sacrifice. I'm not making this up. Anytime we want, we can pounce. Trump can declare martial law. Okay, we talked about this last night. Trump can declare martial law legally and instantly if needed. While technically true, definitely an unnerving specter to put on the horizon that we would have to live under a state of martial law. I think that would be a little bit extreme, don't you? Maybe he already has ? As if the president has some. They like to go back to some obscure executive order updates. They're always changed between administrations. Military orders are always, they're changed in a de facto way because every administration has different lawyers, and every administration looks at the executive orders and what they can change immediately, and there is no way to declare secretly a martial law executive order. So maybe arrests have already happened. Hillary, on October 30th, 2017, Q said that she would be indicted, arrested. Podesta Huma, LDR, arrested on 11/17, so November of last year. This anon is saying catch and release. So I guess they're saying they secretly arrested them, and it was all sealed, and then they released them, theoretically with their medical boots on, except I don't think Abedin or Podesta ever had one of those. So media owners and cabal directors, less than 100 people. So I guess they're saying less than 100 people have been arrested, but very top members of the cabal. The 4 a.m. talking point authors, the media is doing what they are told, and they are told to attack Trump. The lemmings follow blindly, along with Congress and the world. Why? It's actually quite simple, genius, elegant, foolproof. The current battle is against the media. Step 1, force media to destroy themselves. Step 2, expose media as the people's enemy. Step 3, people blame media for the cover-up. Step 4, media is destroyed and replaced. Media is destroyed and replaced. I have no idea what that means. So you're destroying the so-called fourth estate, and then you're what? So if media is destroyed and replaced, which is completely off the map crazy, the only way to do that would be to basically say that you're going to take stars and stripes and infuse the military media coverage into whatever's left of the Fourth Estate, which would line up with the martial law. So to destroy the media, you would need to replace them with the only existing thing left to report the news, which would be the government and the military, which is very odd. So either you do government TV like China, or you bring in the military to do that, and that's just odd. I don't understand that. Arrest, this is more anon interpretation of Q. Arrest are easy, institutions are not. Faith in media must be destroyed. I mean, wow. Trump lets them live in jail if plan works. Otherwise, their sentence is death. Military tribunals are already held. Now, this is the baby chin stuff. Military tribunals are already held, so we've already suspended habeas corpus, I guess, which hasn't been done in any form whatsoever since Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War. And we don't know about it, apparently, but habeas corpus has been suspended. They are working hard for Trump, these same people we're trying to destroy, to save their own lives and their kids. So the threat here is that to the media and anyone who is against Trump, that you will die and perhaps your family will die too. Jail is better than hanging to most. Others have already chose hanging. Explain suicide weekend option. I don't understand what we're talking about here. Are we talking about Chris Cornell and Anthony Bourdain and David Spade's sister-in-law? I mean, I don't really know anybody else who is involved in anything politically or government related or sex trafficking who was hanging themselves. It really makes no sense at all. In exchange, they destroy the media for us. So by letting them live, apparently we have agents within the media that are destroying the media. They're on purpose and on schedule, on time and under budget, Trump style. They're forced to corner themselves. They're forced to turn on themselves. I'm just going to read this sentence out. This is the sentence that I would like you to remember. More efficient, Saul Alinsky style. Saul Alinsky style. Now, you might ask yourself, where did you see Saul Alinsky being referenced recently? If you want some breadcrumbs, I'll give you some breadcrumbs. So this was released from an Anon Q follower on Awakening Reddit board last night. Somebody out there on Twitter, who we all know, put out the first of a redacted chat log about the formation of Q. What name did you read in that chat log that came out today? What name jumped out at you? There you go. You want a breadcrumb? There you go. Oh, it's real. Chat logs are real. And this Anon is tipping its hand that he was involved in the narrative building. So, I don't know. Saul Alinsky, again, Saul Alinsky style. So they're basically admitting that Q has adopted the methodologies in a reverse application of what Saul Alinsky does. Very interesting considering the chat log that came out today. So this Anon says he thinks that we're ahead of schedule. Midterms are not, here's another important point, midterms are not at risk. Now, what have I been saying about this Q phenomenon? Nowhere inside this Q phenomenon have we felt any urgency to get out there and vote, have we? Nowhere in this Q phenomenon have we felt this need to register voters and get out there and knock on doors and get our neighbors, family, and friends to vote. Correct? Nowhere is there an urgency to look at the historical facts about midterm elections and our likelihood of having to struggle really hard with a 2-to-1 vacancy rate against the Democrats to retain majority. So here we go. This is now out there and defined by Anons on the board. They're speaking for Q. This is part of Q's group. And I want to read it to you so you can all chew on this little morsel. Midterms are not at risk. They never were at risk. 70% conservative, 30% liberal equals true. Well, we know they're not talking about voter registration because we are out-registered by Democrats by like 10 million, 15 million votes, if not more. I don't even fucking know anymore. It's ridiculous. So, very interesting that they say 70% conservative, 30% liberal equals true. What does that mean? I have no idea. There's no way I can apply that to any actuarial reality as far as voting's concerned, polling's concerned, or anything like that. So this is the collective we would never leave it to chance. The only risk left is economic. And again, I'm reading from an Anon trying to decipher Q on the Great Awakening Reddit board. from normies freaking out too much, I guess I would be a normie freaking out too much, or rogue operators, the 4 to 6%. So I guess he's saying there's rogue operators in the economy, like Warren Buffett or a Bill Gates or a Jeff Bezos, and the richest Americans among us who could screw with the economy, and that's absolutely correct assertion. They would be doing so in spite of their shareholders and would probably have to go to jail to do it, but he's saying that's potential. We fought the real war in 2017, Trump at CIA on day fucking one. Again, that's not me, that's them saying this. Trump went to CIA on day fucking one. Battle started that morning, and last major battle was Vegas, 10/17. So now again, we're back to this James Browder obsessed Stephen Paddock shooting at the Las Vegas massacre, which somehow ties into, get ready, consistent theme coming here, the Saudi Arabian government overthrown weeks later. Now, saying the Saudi government was overthrown is a bit of an exaggeration. In part, there were major reforms instituted, and many of the members of the Crown Prince's family that were not in line with these reforms were arrested. And that's not a government overthrow. So again, showing a little bit of just naivete, lack of knowledge or education. So then, this is again reading from here. This is again an anonymous who is a predominant follower of Q, discerning Q's post for us. The Q starts posting on 10/28/17. So they're linking together Vegas shootings, Saudi government being overthrown, and then Q starting, as if this was all preordained. This battle is now about minds. Now they're using classic military psychology, slowly awakening the masses, and to break media hypnosis. Now here's the message, I guess, that he is claiming Q is giving us. Relax. Be a warrior, not a worrier. Be a warrior, not a worrier. So what they're trying to do is put you in a military state of mind, militaristic, as in a pitchfork mode where the enemy's at the door, and the enemy is the current media and anyone in the Democratic Party. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. I think that's a disturbing sentiment because, again, we're not supposed to worry. Again, let me read what they said before. Midterms are not at risk. They were never at risk. And then you jump to the end. Be a warrior, not a worrier. So don't worry. That's the theme. Don't worry about the midterms, which means, I guess, sit on your ass, maybe vote. I don't know, it doesn't even say that. Justice has already been served. You just don't know it yet. And there you go to the determinism factor. This is already a determined outcome. It is preordained. That's a real problem because while consistent in these cold read style scams, these piecemeal scavenger hunt scams, it is also very dangerous because your timelines keep shifting and shifting and shifting, and then you have to say timelines change, disinformation is necessary. So whenever you're doing anything that is so-called preordained, it needs to actually happen at some point. And then when you ask these people for anything that's actually transpired, they will point to three things. They'll point to some crazy theory about North Korea that was predicted and really hasn't come true yet. There is no denuclearization of North Korea. We have a very loose agreement, and everybody in the world knew that Trump was willing to meet with Kim Jong-un, and everybody in the world knew that once we got involved with sending over our initial team of emissaries over to the Middle East with Jared Kushner's team, we knew that Saudis, in order to keep and justify the military expenditures we've made there, we're going to have to make some reforms or not get what they have gotten in the past from Donald Trump. There is no discernible relationship between the Saudi, which is very wealthy. Obviously the kingdom is very wealthy, but there's no discernible beyond the typical donation things to foundations like McCain's foundation or Clinton's foundation. There's no discernible way or proof or evidence that they've ever worked in capacity with the CIA or with politicians to bribe them into certain activities. That really has never been a giant issue. So I think they're just forced to use a couple of princes in the Saudi government getting locked up, and they're forced to use the Kim Jong-un summit as something, they are historic things, but they're forced to use that as this only proof of a preordained thing coming true. So it's a little bit mystifying to me. I'm gonna have hopefully a special guest tonight explain us explain to us the personalities behind the formation of Q, and then the evidence of why these people are indeed the ones that are doing it. And it's a public service thing. If you don't want to watch it, you don't have to tune in. If you are interested in an academic, intellectual, or just perverse curiosity to get to know more about Q and some of the silly people that all of a sudden started making money off of it, I think you'll find our guest tonight very, very intriguing. So this should be anywhere between 7 and 8 p.m. tonight. I may not be able to do it until 8 p.m. I've got to go to Hershey. Our guest, I believe, is already available at 7. Hopefully he'll be available at 8. I'll determine the rest with Glenn. So I may be seeing you again tonight. Hopefully you are not exhausted by my presence already. But again, bad day this week. Bad week so far for Rod Rosenstein. Very bad week for Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Glenn Simpson. There's a reason why Peter Strzok is probably a happy man right now, because he probably has a couple people that put him where he is in his target range right now for revenge. And a bad week for Q already could very well get very bad for Q once more chat logs are posted. And then once it's independent corroboration that is coming and has been well broadcast on Gab, what's coming in chat log verifications, once they double blind source verify the chat logs from 2 different independent sources and you see them unredacted, then there will be no way in order for anybody who has their faculties about them to deny why and who put this whole thing together. That's all I got. So I will see you in a few hours, and I'll leave this one up for anybody else who needs it. Again, if it looks like a LARP, smells like a LARP, talks like a LARP, it's a LARP.